Hey guys, my name is Akhil Kothari and welcome to Scene Kya Hai. So Arjun, so good to have you on my first podcast shoot. Yeah, let's talk about your background, where you came from, what's been your journey.
No, I think, look, first, thank you for having me on the first episode. The first episode of any podcast is always special. I remember my first episode with Rohan from Epigamia. So, it's exciting to see this podcast kick off and honored to be the first guest on the podcast.
It's our honor you're here.
So, look, I'll talk about my family background first because that has a lot to do with my background and what I ended up doing with Dr. Vaidyas, right? So, Vaidya, my last name means Ayurvedic doctor. I come from a legacy of 150 years of Ayurveda. My grandfather, great-grandfather, and generations before, all Ayurvedic doctors. So my great-grandfather moved from Gujarat to Bombay in 1923 to set up a Ayurvedic clinic.
Okay.
He set up a small Ayurvedic clinic in a place called Masjid Mandar.
Masjid Mandar.
In 57, my grandfather graduated from medical school. At that time, it was customary to do what your dad did. So my grandfather studied medicine.
Amazing.
He then took on his father's practice. My great-grandfather retired in 71 and he took on his father's practice. In the 80s and 90s, he became one of India's most successful Ayurvedic doctors. So 300 to 350 patients on a daily basis in his clinic, 12,000 patients on a monthly basis writing to him via post.
Wow.
And post, you can imagine, is the e-commerce of that time.
Yeah.
So 80s and 90s, he became really successful. My dad graduated from college in the late 80s.
Okay.
And my dad said, look, this is amazing what you're doing in the clinic, but I'm not a doctor. I don't want to be a doctor. So can I take what you have in the clinic to hundreds of thousands of people in India, right? And think about late 80s, early 90s, FMCG brands were just starting to be built, right? Yeah. So they tried to work together for a year. Doctors and businessmen don't see eye to eye. My grandfather never understood why he had to pay money to market his product, right? Because 300 patients came on a daily basis to the clinic. So eventually my dad went his own way and he now runs a very successful business in the jewelry and watch space. Has been doing that for the last 35 years.
In Mumbai itself?
In Mumbai, we have a store in Delhi as well. It's called the Rose Group of Companies. But I think there was always that thought process to my grandmother that someone has to take it forward.
Yeah.
Right? So I was born, as I said before, we started recording in 91, so I'm 30 years old now. And I suffered from juvenile bronchitis. I suffered from asthma.
Yeah, I read that.
So I grew up with pumps, nebulizers, inhalers, steroids. I was the only kid who couldn't have Limca, Coke, Fanta, Sprite at birthday parties because it would jack my throat. I love cricket. I'm obsessed with cricket.
I keep seeing, even I have a few books of Sachin Tendulkar as well.
So I started playing cricket at age 5. I went to Hindu Gymkhana in Bombay.
Okay.
And by age 7, my grandfather moved me off the cricket field. Because in Bombay, we don't have so much grass on the field. It's just dust, right? Yeah. So dust for an asthmatic is not good. So my dada moved me off the cricket field. And then I was playing golf and squash as a 7-year-old kid, and you can imagine a 7-year-old kid who already had hand-eye coordination problems.
Exactly.
I couldn't bat. I was only bowling. Go to the golf course and 95% of the balls you're hitting, you're missing, right? So very frustrating. Also, golf and squash are individual sports, right? So while my friends were playing cricket and football, I was playing golf and squash. And I remember I wasn't allowed to have ice cream. So I had my first ice cream when I was 12, 13 years old. My parents took me to
ice cream.
Baskin Robbins on a Sunday and ordered me a scoop of vanilla ice cream and had to wait till it melted and had ice cream soup, right? So asthma prevented me from having what I call a normal childhood. And then I got on Ayurvedic treatment, obviously, very early on. 14 years of Ayurvedic treatment. Later, my grandfather cured me of asthma.
Ayurvedic recipes were from your grandfather?
So I went under my grandfather's treatment at age 2, 3. And by 15, 16, I was cured of asthma, right?
Okay.
And so what's the first thing I went and did? I went and started playing cricket again, right?
That's great.
I was in an IB school called Tirubhayamani International School. Wasn't a very big cricket school. We didn't even have a cricket team.
But I think it's a very famous school in Mumbai.
Famous school, but not a very big cricket school. So we didn't even have a cricket team for grade 11 and 12. So I convinced one history teacher who was British, who loved cricket as well, to start a cricket team with us. He became our coach. And we used to train behind the auditorium.
And this what age?
This was age 16.
Okay.
16 and a half types. And I was not the best player. I'm always batted at 10 or 11 because I can't bat. I used to bowl my heart out, right? But I showed up to every single practice. I was the most regular guy to practice. So I think only 2 or 3 people showed up to every single practice. So I wasn't the most talented player. I wasn't the best player on the team by far. But I was made captain of the team, right?
Great.
And look, it's not a big team. It's not a big deal.
But still, you're the captain.
For me, it meant a big...
For you,
It was a big thing because I couldn't play cricket because of asthma. Ayurveda cured me of asthma, and then I became captain of my school cricket team. And today, if I look back, it wasn't a big deal. But at that time, for me, that was the biggest thing that happened in my life, right? And so I became a believer in Ayurveda more than just family legacy. Right? Because I was like, this has cured me, it's given me a new lease of life, etc. So I spent a lot of time with my grandfather. I transcribed our family formulations from the scriptures to the computer. I put them on Excel sheets.
Like at that time or after you started?
At that time, 16, 17 years old, before I went to college. And so we had conversations about me doing something with this legacy. I was a science student. So I went to college in 2009 to the US, to Brown University. And I went to study biotechnology, biochemistry.
Yeah.
And when I went to the US, I obviously went to a liberal arts college where you didn't have to do what you said you were doing. And I didn't enjoy spending time in the lab. So I never studied biochemistry. My dada promised he'd pay for my education if I studied biochemistry. So after the first year, he stopped paying for my education, saying, you're studying economics and politics, like what is happening here? But my experience in the US actually shaped a lot of the way I think, right? So I went to Whole Foods for the first time.
Okay.
I saw the move towards natural organic products. I saw yoga being repackaged, right? Yoga mats, yoga gyms, yoga apparel, Lululemon, all of these things. And I said, hey, like this is
more than it's being done in India.
So it's really cool because they're taking what's Indian and repackaging it for modern consumers.
And selling it at such...
But Indian companies had nothing to do with it, right? And look, I'm super patriotic. You can see this band of India that
Even
I
am.
I wear on my hand. I've been wearing it for the last 12, 13 years. So the patriot in me said, look, what's happening here? Like, this is not correct. So I called my dada from campus and I said, it's great that yoga is spreading, but we can't let the same happen with Ayurveda. We need to be Indian companies taking Ayurveda to the world. So I came back to India after college in 2013 with these thoughts at the back of my mind. I took a job in private equity at a consumer sector focused fund called L Capital Asia, now called L Keratin.
Okay.
A private equity arm of Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy Group. So investing in consumer. We have investors in Fab India, PVR, these kind of companies. And
sorry, this is the this LVHM.
Yeah, Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy.
They're investing.
They had a private equity. They have a private equity fund called L Capital Asia, now called L Keratin Asia. They merged with a US fund. And so I spent a lot of time on the Indian consumption story, right? And I learned 3 things about India which I changed. The first one was Indians were happy to consume quintessentially Indian brands. The India I grew up in, I was gifted a Japanese electronic sharpener for my 11th birthday from a store that only sold imported products because what was considered imported was good and what was Indian was substandard.
Yeah,
this was changing. Fab India had happened. We were seeing it live. Second was Ayurveda was undergoing a renaissance, right? So from the time India got independence, Ayurveda was always viewed as second fiddle because we had the British influence. So allopathy, Western medicine ruled the roost. But 2014 government change, Ministry of Ayush was created. Hundreds of thousands of consumers like you became interested in Ayurveda.
You think that actually impacted?
Patanjali revolution was happening. Big changes in Ayurveda. And the third one was, I was the youngest member of the team at L Capital. And so they said, hey, this e-commerce thing seems to be happening. We've seen it in the US, we've seen it in China. We haven't invested, but like do a project and see what comes out of this. And this was, think about 2013, 14, right? So it's just the beginning.
Just starting.
Myntra, Jabong, Pepperfry, Zivame, Bluestone. I got to spend time with all these companies. And I realized very quickly, this is here to stay. It's not some fad that comes and goes. E-commerce is here to stay. So this was the macro context behind Dr. Vaidyas. The micro context was my grandfather passed. So we had this rich legacy, these formulations, and someone had to take it forward. And I made a promise to him at some point. And so I was thinking about Dr. Vaidyas. I was like, let me do something with it. It was not even called Dr. Vaidyas at that time.
Okay.
And then all entrepreneurs have that one moment where the switch flips. We have to do it, right?
Yeah.
So it was my dad's 50th birthday, April 2016. I was still in my job. They asked, his office had a party for him.
Okay.
And at this party, they asked me to give a speech. So I went to his office, I gave a speech on my dad's influence on my life, etc., all of that. After this, so by this time my dada had passed, his clinic was running as a dispensary. So only his patients who had his prescriptions would come and take the medicine.
Okay,
Doctor nahi tha clinic mein. And his nurse of 17 years came up to me after my speech with a tear in her eye. She said, you talk about your dad, you talk about all of that, but are you okay to let your grandfather's legacy die? And that was the moment I said, boss, I'm 24 years old. Like, I have nothing to lose in life. Worst case, it won't work, but I have a duty to my grandfather and my family's name to do something with this legacy. So I quit my job, started a company, named it after my dada.
At
called
24?
Dr Vaidyas.
Okay.
Yeah, by the time I started the company, 2016, I was 25. Quit my job at 24. I was 25 when I started the company. And I said, look, Ayurveda exists, it has a lot of value, but it's not appealing and accessible to Akhil.
Yeah.
And someone needs to bridge the gap between Ayurveda and Akhil. And that's what we set out to do with Dr. Vaidyas. An Ayurvedic products brand that makes 150 years of family legacy and 5,000 years of science appealing and accessible to Akhil or to consumers like Akhil. That was the premise and the mission behind why we started the company.
All right.
So, long drawn way to answer your question, but that's the background behind Dr.
All
Vaidyas.
right. So that's great. So once Dr. Vaidyas established, what were the key challenges that you faced initially? Because it was new. You started off with D2C directly, right?
No, so we didn't start off with D2C. The biggest challenge we faced was initially. So, look, D2C didn't exist as a term in 2016, 2017, right?
Yeah.
It was online first, digital only, but nobody believed that digital brands would exist. Like, even the sort of large investors at that time were not sure whether digital only brands could scale, right? And so, we started offline. Because October 2016, that's where brands started.
Okay.
I remember we had a launch event at Taj Lands End Hotel in Mumbai.
Okay.
At that event, we had a bunch of people, press, media, and distributors, etc. And after that event, we signed up 6 distributors for Bombay. So we had 6 distributors. We had launched 2 products: Live It Up, Ayurvedic Hangover Cure, and HerboFit, Goodness of Chyawanprash in a capsule.
All right.
So, multivitaminized version of Chyawanprash that takes away the bitterness, stickiness.
Understood. So it was just like a tablet.
Capsule.
Yeah, capsule, yeah.
So we signed up 6 distributors. We did 10 lakhs worth of billing. And I thought this is amazing, right? Like, I was a good student in school. I went to a good college. I went to Ivy League college. I had a good job out of college. Now I've started a business and I'm off to the races, right? So I was a finance guy. So I started modeling this on an Excel sheet, right? Like 10 lakhs next month, 20 lakhs, 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 2 crores, 5 crores, 7.5 crores. So एक साल में $1 million per month का business बन जाएगा. Right? That was the thought process behind it. So, in that time period, we did the billing in the market to the distributors, but we were a new brand. We were up against Dabur, Patanjali, Zandu, Himalaya. We had no money. And so we had no right to win. And I didn't know how to build an offline business. Like, I didn't know any of the basics, right? Yeah. And so 3 months later, we got 9 lakhs worth of this 10 lakhs worth of product back as returns to us, right? So that was a rude awakening for me that, look, this entrepreneurship thing is very difficult.
Same, literally exact same thing happened with my company. Initial billing, you feel like,
but it's not real, right?
Because it's not real because you know कि अभी billing हुई है, but ये वापस return आएगा. वो
आ सकता है because you're billing to distributors. They have to bill to retailers. So have to bill to end consumers. Once the end consumer is paying, then you get money upside.
And it's also perishable product?
Ours was not. Ours was 3-year expiry. So not perishable. So we got the returns, but we could do something with it at least.
Okay.
But it was a colossal failure for me, right? I remember going home on that Friday evening and not leaving my room till Monday morning till I had to go back to work. I was like so stressed out and like I didn't know what had hit me. And at that time, I remember my girlfriend at the time, Trisha, she had worked at Goldman Sachs in the UK after Warwick and then had worked in the founding early team at Nykaa, first 15-20 people in Nykaa. And she, by this time, she was an impact investor. She used to work at Telecab and she told me, look, this e-commerce thing, like you've seen it at your time as an investor. I've seen it my time at Nykaa. It's here to stay. And nobody's doing it in Ayurveda. No one is trying this in Ayurveda. That's your opportunity.
So that's the gap.
That's the gap. That's where we can win, right? Yeah. So I said, look, I agree with you, but I can't do it alone. By this time I realized like FMCG business, supply chain, legal, procurement, HR, IT, admin, sales, distribution, marketing, strategy, branding.
Everything.
At 25 I couldn't do it alone, right? So I said,
you need a team.
I'll do it, but you have to come on board.
Yeah.
So we got engaged. She agreed to come on board. Both sets of parents thought it was a terrible idea that planning a wedding and working together. But when she came on board, we decided we're doing online only. That was the launch of drvaidyas.com, the digital first strategy.
Okay.
November 2017, we launched our website. We launched 29 products on our website. We used to do one order every 3 days. We used to celebrate every order we got. That was the first big failure, which taught me that entrepreneurship is a roller coaster, but led us to eventually being a D2C brand.
Yeah, and even that one order would have gotten you so much happiness.
We'd celebrate every order.
Yeah. Like, what was your biggest learning in all of this, in this whole journey? And also, I want to know about what happened after this, before you exited.
So I'll tell you what happened after this and then take you to my learnings, right? So look, we launched. We had one order every 3 days on our website. And then the first year, 2017 November to 2018 November, Trisha and I learned digital. So we literally spoke to every single customer. We learned Facebook marketing, Google marketing, website, WooCommerce, Shopify, warehousing.
So before that, were you doing ads as well?
We started doing ads in November 2017. We learned it ourselves, right? We took 1 year to learn it.
Yeah.
Spoke to every single customer. On Sunday, we'd take the customer service phone home and answer all the calls to understand our customer. So in that year, we learned digital business, we learned D2C, and we also learned about our customer. 1 year later, we hit 50 orders a day. Now, 50 orders a day in November 2018 was a big deal. Single branded Ayurvedic website, November 2018, 50 orders a day was a big deal. So we hit 50 orders a day. We said, okay, now this is not just in our heads. This is a business. There are 50 people every day buying this product. There's something here, right?
You'd also launched other products by then?
29 products. By November 2017, we were 29 products. Okay. So that time when we realized, what's the gap? Where are we solving a problem? We're solving a problem because outside the top 10 cities, consumers don't have access to high quality Ayurvedic care and products at the touch of their fingertips. My grandfather believed that income status should not prevent someone from coming to his clinic. So free consultation was always available at Dr. Vaidyas clinic. You only paid for the medicine.
Okay.
Right from my grandfather's time. So he said, let's take this free consultation online. And we took that free consultation online. Consumers from Muzaffarnagar to Trichy, from Anantnag to Mizoram, got access to high quality Ayurvedic products at the touch of their fingertips with credible consultation and then eventually good quality products. And that's what allowed our brand to scale. So November 2018, we had 50 orders a day at a customer acquisition cost of 30%, 35% of average order value.
Okay.
Strong gross margin business. So this started making sense. So we said, okay, let's hyperscale from here.
Okay.
From there, long story short, we got from 50 to 5,000 orders a day. We launched another 60-ish
5,000 orders a day.
We launched another 60-ish products. So we had about 85 products. We got to 2 million plus transacting customers. But the real value was across 16,500 pin codes. So we reached more than 60% of India without any offline sales force from one warehouse, right? So that's the power of digital business. In the interim, we raised a Series A from RP Sanjeev Goenka Group. They invested in June 2019 into our business. And then COVID hit, right? Everyone knows COVID hit. But for us, actually COVID was a blessing in disguise, right? Because health and wellness, we were already market leaders in digital Ayurveda, online Ayurveda. We were winning that market already. And huge interest towards immunity and hygiene. The good thing we did is we stayed open all through, right? So we were shut for like 4 days, not 3-4 weeks, 3-4 days.
The initial 3-4 days.
We got the pass, we started work first like 2-3 times a week, then eventually after 10 days, every day, right? Like we were working every day. We kept open and we launched 7 products in immunity and hygiene. Kadha, immunity boosters, ashwagandha capsules, giloy capsules, sanitizer, fruit and veggie wash. Yeah. And we were available for our customers in this time. That allowed exponential growth in 2020 for the business.
Okay.
Exponential growth. And then in December 2020, RPSG made an offer to buy the business. They were already investors and they believed that they wanted to own a larger share of the pie. My wife and I reflected for some time saying, is it the right time? And we thought for us, we had built the business to a great scale, but it was the right time for us to say, let's give it to somebody else. It's a very tough decision. Telling our team was the toughest thing we had done in our lives.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But we decided to exit. We hand over the business till March 21 and we eventually exited our equity position and sold the business to them. 3 key learnings before we get into the next part of the conversation. 1, entrepreneurship is not the unicorns in the newspapers. It's a roller coaster, right?
100%, 100%.
Failure has to be met with grit, resilience, and the ability to fight back. That's the hallmark of a good entrepreneur.
True.
Number 2, you can't do it alone, right? So even Trisha and I were not enough, right? Yeah, even if we spend 16 hours a day, the compounding effects of quality doesn't come unless you have an empowered, high quality team.
That's true.
So we under-indexed on team in the early days and we paid for it. right? We paid for it in the first 2 years. Third and last one, because a lot of young people will see this podcast, I hope. A lot of young people come to me now and they say, hey, I want to start a business. I want to start a startup. I want to start a startup. But I'm going to stay in my job still. Side mein kar lenge. I'll do it as a hobby. Startup will become big, then I'll leave my job.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
There's nothing like being slightly pregnant. That my dad used to say. There's nothing like being slightly pregnant with a startup. You're either in or you're out.
Yeah, true.
And if you're in, you have to be 100% in. So that's my 3 key learnings from my 4.5 year journey.
That's amazing. And also one more question I want to ask you is why, like, what was the key reason for you to grow so much before COVID, even before COVID? Like you said, you went from 50 orders a day to 5,000 orders a day in, I think, 1.5 to 2 years. Like, why did that happen? Was it
So I wouldn't say it's COVID. Right? It's about establishing product market fit. So we reached 50 orders a day at a customer acquisition cost of 30-35% of average order value. That as a business model made sense to us, right? It fundamentally worked. Then from there, the power of digital is hyperscale, right? Do the same thing, but scale it up. So went from 50 to 100, 100 to 200, 200 to 500, and kept on scaling from there. I mean,
you invested a lot of your budget, a lot of your revenue in online ads as well?
Online ads, content, engaging with consumers, influencers, the entire gamut of building a digital business.
Yeah.
But I'm saying 50 to 5,000, it sounds very easy, but there were many milestones along there, 50 to 100, 100 to 200.
Yeah, and that's the journey. That's the process which, I might be wrong in saying this because everyone has their own way of running a company and running a startup. But exactly what you said, the unicorns that you see in newspapers or in the media, that's just the face of it. What goes behind that struggle, that journey of just days and days and days of you coming back home every night and just feeling like, what is happening. But the next day you have to get back and get in your zone ki wo ek zid hoti hai. I have that zid, I have to do it. I have to do this.
Absolutely. And I think one more other thing which my wife implemented in Dr. Vaidyas was celebrating the small victories. So you implement the learnings, you keep going. But as a founder, you're like, okay, I got to 100 orders. Now I'm going to get to 200, 300, 500, 1,000. You never stop, right?
Yeah.
So she started something which I posted on LinkedIn about recently, celebrating small victories. Every time we reached an order milestone, 50 to 100, 100 to 200, we'd cut a cake in the office. Stop for 15 minutes. Everyone just reflect on what we've done. Enjoy that moment and then think about the future.
Yeah, that's true.
I remember we must have cut some 30, 40 cakes, right? And sometimes in a week, we'd go from 1,100 to 1,200, 1,200 to 1,300, right? So we'd cut a cake every single time. But that's also
great. And also, that also helps so much in team building. Also, one thing I realized, again, I also had the same thing. I सब कुछ खुद कर लूँगा. I'll do this myself. But you just can't. You need a team and you need to trust that team and believe in that team. It's very difficult to manage your D2C cost of transport for us. So basically, our general order value is somewhere between 600 to 700 rupees.
But it's a volumetric product.
It's a volumetric product for sure. But also...
volumetric hai, isliye logistics cost is more, right? So my AOV was similar to yours, 600, 700 rupees. But मेरे bottle इतने छोटे.
Exactly, तो यहाँ packet इतना बड़ा है ना.
So you get charged on volumetric weight, which means your logistics expense, even though your weight is not much, it will be much more than what I pay. This is a challenge in food.
So now we don't have the challenge with our energy bars on our other brand.
Smaller product, compact, higher.
It's for like 120, 200 bucks. People order 5-6 pieces. Perfect.
हो जाता है. Under 500 grams.
Under 500 grams हो जाता है. लेकिन उस cost को कैसे manage करे, उस cost को कैसे cover करे? If you have any suggestions for people who are in this field.
Yeah, look, I think there's two things you can look at. One is larger bundles, which rationalize your logistics cost. The second thing is now look at closer fulfillment. Okay. So if you can foresee you're in Delhi and you can foresee that a lot of demand comes from the West, open a warehouse in Bombay as well. Okay. So you transport all the stock to Bombay in bulk, but then the last mile becomes shorter. And now you're seeing a lot of these new warehousing models where brands have 3 warehouses, at least north, South and West.
Yeah.
At
I think
least
that's a
those
good
three
idea, yeah.
geographies, right?
I think that's
even
a
with
great
Amazon,
idea.
you can place yourself in 10 FBA warehouses, 5, 6. We were in some 6, 7 FBA
Amazon,
warehouses.
though, we are in their
So
warehouses. but
similarly,
I'm
you
talking
can do
about
that
for yourself
for
as
a
well.
D2C experience.
Yeah.
There's
I think that's
there's
a great
enough
idea.
enablers who do this.
I think that's a
There's
great
enough
idea. That's a
happening.
good idea. I'm gonna actually work on this part now. You also said that you sold you've exited from your company now. How has life been after that? So what is
Yeah.
it that you're enjoying, and how's the absolute financial freedom? How does that feel?
Look, I think I'll tell you first. How does it feel like? I say this to all founders. I get to sleep at night, right? Because for 4.5 years I didn't get to sleep at night. So I think I get to sleep at night. It's not like I'm not busy, right? I'm busy, but I get to sleep at night.
Yeah.
It's very different now being an investor. So I think after we exited, both my wife and I said, look, we want to give back to the ecosystem. So we wrote a playbook to build a D2C brand, which we teach as a cohort-based course now. We've had hundreds of people in the last year learn from us in 8 weeks. Our learnings are 4.5 years. So we can enable, let's say, someone like you to not make the same mistakes that we made, right? So we teach this cohort-based course. We've mentored, advised some more than 700-800 founders. We give our time to founders.
Oh, great.
Invested in 50 plus companies as angels now in the last
50
year.
plus companies.
Yeah.
And any specific field or like multi?
Across the board. The idea is to give back to founders and be that
That's
support
great.
system. And then I now run the venture arm of Whirl Invest. So Whirl Invest is a large consumer fund that does mostly private equity investing, so more growth equity investing. They're investors in Sula, Viba, Epigamia, Purple,
great.
Wakefit, Byju's, Heads Up for Tails. Now recently Lahori and Jeera Soda.
Oh, okay. I saw.
But those are more larger tickets. So they've now started with me, an earlier stage investing fund to do $1 to $5 million checks
Crazy.
across the consumer landscape. So consumer brands, consumer internet, enablement to e-commerce, and e-commerce on new commerce platforms. That's the focus for Whirl
great.
Invest now
That's
in
great.
India.
That's
So
great.
that's what I've been up to since the exit. Large thesis is, hey, we've learned something, can we give it back, and what ways can we give it back in? But very different from being a founder.
So we are also going for venture capital in the next 6 months. We started working with a few companies, few investment bankers who've been talking to us. A lot of people that I've met, a lot of entrepreneurs also, they keep telling me, sell your story and sell yourself. These two things are very important. You want to reflect on these two things?
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, an investment pitch is about a story and a vision, at an early stage at least. It's about a story and a vision that you are building and someone else wants to be there for the ride, right? So it's important to be able to tell the story in a clear, succinct, concise, but yet exciting way, right? So I think, where do people go wrong? It's too long, it's too complicated, it's not clear, or the point didn't come across, right? And so storytelling is very important, but
Short and crisp.
short and crisp, and you also need to have the right meat to the conversation, the right numbers, the right metrics, the right talk about, let's say for a D2C business, you need to talk about traction, sales, number of customers, repeat rate, gross margin, product pipeline, what are the hero products. You miss all of these and you just tell a pie in the sky story of I'm building a unicorn in the, let's say, snack space or the health and wellness space without the metrics. It doesn't make sense, right? So it's a fine balance between storytelling in a concise manner with real metrics and real vision that an investor bites. And the other thing I think is, look, what people don't get is you go for a pitch, right? But you make it very transactional. You're trying to convince someone to be on a 5 to 8 year journey with you, maybe even 10 years. It's a very long ride, right? So you need to build that relationship, build that comfort, build that equation. That's as important as pitching the business as well.
All right. And about personal branding, I mean, a lot of people say become the face of the brand. Get on every Instagram post.
Look, you don't have money for ATL as an early stage brand.
Yeah.
What can you do? You become the face of the brand, wear the brand on your sleeve, right? So I remember putting a LinkedIn post about this. People used to make fun of me. I used to always have my product in my back pocket. I just pull it out. I'd always wear a Dr. Vaidyas t-shirt. But look, I didn't have the money to do a TV ad, right? So that was my TV ad. I'd wear my t-shirt at the airport. People would notice. People ask me, "Ye kya hai?" And then I'd show them my website, and then they'd buy my product. That's my ability to market, right? So I think the best founders wear their brand on their sleeve.
Yeah. Even I do a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's just a sense of such a pride of just...
Yeah.
Also, what do you think about Shark Tank India?
I think it's amazing. So look, I think my grandmother, my wife's nani, they started asking us what equity means, what funding means, what raising capital means, right? It's a great enabler to the ecosystem. It's great to get the knowledge out for startups. It's amazing that we have a show on primetime as startups, right?
Exactly.
So it shows that we've arrived as
everyone
startups.
is
I think it's a great enabler. I think it'll just spread the knowledge of startups. It'll spread the knowledge that, hey, a startup is actually a legitimate thing to do, right? It's not like if you tell your parents today, I'm starting a company, they'll be like, really, come on.
Go and study.
Doctor, lawyer, engineer. Right? That's gone now.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And even more with Shark Tank. So I think it's an amazing enabler. It gives a lot of reach. It's got great feedback. People love the show.
Yeah, and I think
and I think it's been Indianized, right? Like
exactly,
which is great.
It has been Indianized because Indians need that. कोई बोलता ना कौन बनेगा करोड़पति इतना ज़्यादा emo क्यों है? क्योंकि वो that's what Indians consume.
No, so I'm so happy the show's not in English. I'm so happy.
Even I'm so happy. It shouldn't have been, and that is why it's connecting to so many Indians. All around India. That's great. All right, Arjun, I think we have learned a lot today about Dr. Vaidya's startups and just the learnings and failures and key things to know when you're running a startup. And it was great having you. And thank you for being the first guest on my show.
Thank you, Akhil. It's a pleasure and an honor. And I'm excited to see what people think about your podcast. And all the best with your brand.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.